Hello everyone, it's time for yet another video. Today's video is going to cover entering prior payroll history. If you're coming over from ADP, Gusto, Paychecks, or even a standalone account, which is the example we will pose here today. Um, it can be a tricky process, especially if you do things out of order. It can create havoc. But let's go over the little fine points that you should take care of before you're entering the payroll history. So the first thing obviously is to make sure that the company name is correct, where you go to payroll settings or whatever your particular application, wherever you go. You want to make sure the company name and filing name is correct. The EIN, make darn sure that is correct. Uh, the tax accounts, for the SUI, withholding, whatever. Um, if you want to, you can connect a bank account now. That way, by the time you get done entering the history and you confirm the little baby deposits, everything's good to go. So you want to make sure that's the first and foremost thing to set up. Make sure the percentage for the SUI rates are correct and everything. Because QuickBooks is going to do its own calculations based on what you enter in there. And if you enter the wrong thing, it's going to calculate wrong, and it's going to lead to problems. Trust me. So once that is done, then we would need to move to the employees. Okay, as you can see, I've made up several different ones. Biggest thing on all of them is obviously the pay rate. It doesn't really matter for purposes of entering the history, but nonetheless, you just want to make sure things are right. The social security number. QuickBooks will not let you run payroll on an employee that does not have a social security number. We do not, I repeat, do not support ITIN numbers. If they don't have a social security number, you're not going to pay them with our payroll system. Plain and simple. The other thing to have, birth date. Hire date is another requirement. Obviously, pay schedule, work location, those kind of things. But yeah, the other big thing you want to look at is their tax withholdings for future checks. When you're entering a history, it really doesn't take this into account at all, what this setting is, okay? Um, but what it does take into account is all the different pay types they might have, okay? Any time off policies, if they got PTO, you want to be sure to set the employees up that have PTO with a PTO policy before you start. Otherwise, it will not prompt you for those numbers. And we'll see more on that here in a moment. For instance, this one here has medical insurance, $275 per paycheck. It's going to prompt me for that particular deduction. We'll look at each one here briefly. Here again, salary, hourly wage doesn't really matter for purpose of entering the history. Pretty much any new account is going to have overtime pay and qualified overtime, better known as QOT, tracking on it by default. You can choose to remove them. It's not going to hurt anything to leave them there. Okay. Same here. We got deduction and contribution. The system is going to ask me for these numbers when I'm entering the history. Okay. Let's move on to Santa Claus. All right, Santa, all he had was sick pay, or I'm sorry, paid time off, and he has a balance. Okay. It will not prompt you for the PTO balance when you're entering the information. You will need to transfer that number to the new account, whether you're coming from paychecks or whatever. You need to be aware of that. Let's go on to the next employee. Each one of my employees has something special. Your employee. Like here, they're exempt from Texas SUI because I made them the owner, and they also have the S Corp owner's health insurance. Okay. So like I said, it's going to prompt me for this number. No time off, no deductions. So let's move on to Fred Flintstone. Fred happens to have a garnishment on his profile. Apparently him and Wilma didn't get along. Now they're divorced. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it Tom, Dick, and Harry if you want. But the fact is, it's going to ask me for, it's going to call it case 12345 and ask me for an amount as I'm entering his history. And last but certainly not least, our test subject. This one here is going to throw us a little bit of a curveball later on, and we will cover that when that time comes. This is the usual overtime, qualified OT, as well as another so-called weekend rate at a higher rate. Okay, this is going to come into play later on in the video. I'm going to show you some minor things about that. So it's going to prompt me for the weekend rate. It's going to prompt me for that. Prompt me for that. So on and so forth. And some of the other employees also have overtime on their history. So once you make sure all of your employees are set up, then we can proceed to the history. My rule of thumb, depending, of course, this depends on the number of deductions and garnishments and all the little things that add to the amount of time it takes to set the employee up, get the history entered, and get ready to run payroll. My law of averages say 20 to 25 minutes per employee. Now, obviously, an employee with, if your company doesn't have those deductions or health plans or anything like that, you're just paying them paychecks, you can probably knock that number down to 10 minutes per employee. And that includes entering their history, historical data, and so forth. So let's quit babbling about that. And let's move on to pulling the reports needed to be able to enter this history. And this is what they call standalone payroll. Therefore, all my payroll reports are right there. You don't have to scroll clear to the bottom. Now, we don't need paycheck history. Huh, that's something new. Interesting. Let's take a peek at that. Okay. This, okay, this year, apply. As you can see, this is not a good report because it's probably going to take us to the pay stub. That doesn't do us any good. Don't go by pay stubs, folks. Pull a proper report. My go-to report is the payroll details report. As always, pull it for the entire year. Now, the other thing I should say, later on in the year, depending on when you're importing, okay, let's say I would be entering the data on April 1st. Okay, first quarter is already done. It's merely going to ask you year-to-date totals for Q1. That is it. Being we're in the time of year right now, it's going to ask me for year-to-date totals as of today. Okay. Later on in the year, if you come into payroll like in the middle of a quarter, it will ask you year-to-date up until the end of the previous quarter, and then any paychecks within the quarter that you're currently in. And we're going to see that here momentarily. So keep that in mind. Now, obviously, you can't do it with all these paychecks here. $130. Oh, I didn't apply. Never mind. All right. So yeah, we got a whole bunch of paychecks here, but we want to narrow it down per employee. Now this is the account that I'm entering this information into. I don't have the option here to go into there, so I snuck in the back door to start entering the history because this is be the third time I've done this in this account. Anyway, it asked me for my first payday, which I had previously selected that. Honestly, it frankly doesn't matter. I'm just going to say March 6th. Then we're going to go next. Have you run payroll since you last entered payroll history? Tell it yes. It's going to take me to the same place. Okay. So we're starting with a clean slate. So our first employee is Bugs Bunny. So what we want to do, make sure first of all that our year-to-date is set properly, or whatever it's asking for. And we're going to choose Bugs Bunny, run report. The only numbers you need to be concerned with are in the total row. Don't enter just the one paycheck because you're not going to have the correct numbers. You want the totals. Okay. A lot of customers, they mistakenly enter that and none of my numbers match. Well, that's why. Okay. So I'm going to move this screen to another screen so that I can obviously work off of that. Okay, so it's only asking for year to date. If we were, say, in the middle of the third quarter, it would ask, okay, did you pay Bugs Bunny whenever? Up until this point, yes. Did you pay them after the first of the quarter that you're in? Yes. It will make two columns here where you'll enter quarter one through quarter two totals and then the year to date on the next column. But later in the year, maybe I'll do another video. Anyway, so regular pay. Now, this is the other thing to keep in mind. Whether they are salary or they are hourly, this is all QuickBooks is going to ask you for. Okay. Later on with Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, and another one, they are salary. It's still going to ask for regular pay. That's what you enter there, either salary or the regular pay. So this happens to remember it was $8,000, which is correct. Overtime, like I said, you want to go through each one. It was 750. Whatever's on your report here is what we're entering. Qualified OT tracking, 250. Now you notice it's asking for Blue Cross Blue Shield. It was only an employee deduction. There was no company contribution to it. $1,100. Fed tax, $582.60. Social Security, $474.30. Medicare, $110.93. I never like to skip the net pay. You can, it is optional, but I never tell customers to skip that because that is the system double checking to make sure all these numbers add up to that number. Because if it's wrong, now's the time to catch it. 6482.17. Now, I'm going to make a mistake here on purpose. Watch what happens. Okay. It tells you you've made a boo-boo. And it tells you what it's expecting to see. So, and don't just, okay, well, that's what they say it is. Find out why it's wrong. Did you enter something wrong? Well, obviously you did, or didn't set something up. Pre-tax deductions can often mess with Social Security, Medicare, and we'll do that later too. Blue Cross Blue Shield's a health plan. That's pre-tax to federal and Social Security, Medicare. So you want to be careful with that. Anyway, we got the right numbers now. Now it's going to prompt me for nothing. Okay, never mind. All right. So that was Bugs Bunny. Next, we're going to do Easter Bunny. No relation to bugs. Oops, I don't want to export. Let's do the Easter Bunny. Okay, here again. Now this person is salary. Okay. Okay, well, I was wrong. That's for salary. Okay, so it knows it's salary. 15,384.60. No overtime, no OT tracking. 401k. Here again, that was preset in their employee profile. This is the employer part. Don't confuse employee and employer. Okay. Figures I gotta scroll to the right on the report. Employer part 307.68, I think it was. Yes. Okay. Taxes 1687.68. 953.85. Medicare 223.08. Net pay, all right, 10,981.51. Okay, now here we are purposely going to enter a 1 penny difference. Okay, watch what happens. If it doesn't, it might not do it for a penny. It did not do it for a penny. Okay. Certain software rounds up, certain software rounds down. It will accept some pennies here and there, but let's make it 10 cents. All right, it's being pretty forgiving here, making a liar out of me. So let's fix this. Let's make it a $10 difference. 943.85. Now it should kick us. There we go. Okay. Now it says, hey, double check that. This is a safeguard built in to make sure that you are entering the correct numbers. Oh, I see. I missed a digit. No big deal. Enter it. Now remember, if you're in doubt that the numbers are right or wrong, whichever the case, do your math. Okay. 401k is exempt from federal income tax. Okay. However, it is not exempt from Social Security and Medicare. Check our math. Okay, that's nice. All right. Gross pay minus deductions, taxable earnings. Well, let's do the math here. 13,846.12 times 0.062, that's 6.2%. 858 So this is sort of deceiving. Okay. Don't particularly care for that because it's leading you down the incorrect path. What what we need to be doing is taking the 15,384.60 times 0.062, because remember, 401k is not exempt from Social Security and Medicare, 953.85. Right on the money. Okay. So that's what you got to keep in mind. Now, if this would have been a health plan, yeah, this number would be different. Okay. Let's move on. Were employees' taxes paid incorrectly? No, I just simply made a mistake. Okay, now we're moving on to Santa Claus. Not very busy this time of year for him. Oops. Santa, remove Easter, run. Okay, here again, Santa is salary. Now remember, Santa had PTO on his plan, but nowhere on the report does it show how much PTO he has. There is a separate report, but for purposes of this, it's not going to ask us for PTO unless we happen to pay him some PTO at the time. So once again, we go 15,384.60 because him and Easter Bunny make the same money. No overtime, no paid time off, no QOT. Federal income tax, 1175.40, 953.85 once again, 223.08, and net pay 13,032.27. Perfect. Didn't yell at us or anything. Okay. So next one is your employee, as we call it. Okay. On this one, we have S Corp owners health insurance. Okay. So here again, it's asking us for S Corp owners health insurance. That amount there. That way the W-2 can be populated properly. Don't lump it in with a salary. 7692.32, no overtime. S Corp 1600. Federal 779.68. 779.68. Oh, right there, dummy. Okay, Social Security 476.92. Medicare 111.54. Okie income tax 268. Net pay 6056.18. Like I said, don't skip the net pay if at all possible. Just because we say it should be one thing, it's probably a reason why it says that. Next up, Mr. Fred Flintstone, the one with the garnishment because him and Wilma have been divorced. Poor Wilma. Bam Bam's got to be what, 40 or 50 years old? Whatever. Anyway, actually older than me. So, let's take a peek here real quick. I kind of moved out of the way. Now, Fred has qualified OT. Okay. He's working his butt off to try to pay his garnishment. Okay. So don't ignore these things. You know. And here's the other thing. If if you don't see a certain pay type on here that should be, you can add it on the fly. Same with the deduction or contribution. Oh, I forgot to add this. Poof. It will take you right into their profile. You can add it on the fly. Come back here. Then it'll let you enter it. So regular pay, 6,400 even. Oops, it's already there. Overtime, 562.50. QOT tracking, 187.50. Child support, $1,000. Fed, $500.10. Social, $431.68. Medicare, $100.96. Net pay, $49.29.76. Everything looks good. Save. And last but certainly not least, our test subject, who will be subject to our scrutiny here later on. Now here, a little bit different. Okay, notice he has overtime pay, but no qualified overtime over here. We seem to have neglected that. So this will take us down a small rabbit hole. Okay. A lot of people are confused about this new big, beautiful bill that was introduced last July. Basically, it is calculating based off of the half portion of time and a half, or with double time, the doubling of the wages. We're not going to get into double time here because the time and a half one is a little tricky for some people. If you're good with math, you'll be fine with it. But the easiest way to calculate it, okay, is, and pay attention, please. Okay. So let's say all you have are pay stubs or whatever to go by. Here we just have payroll, the totals. Okay. Right now we have no idea what his hourly rate is. I can tell you just from knowledge, his hourly overtime rate is $15 an hour. Okay. I know that. Maybe the customer don't know that. I don't remember, blah, 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 blah. Let's look and see. Let's take the dollar amount that he was paid divided by the number of hours. We know those two factors because the hours are not going to translate over to the new payroll. It's just going to have a dollar amount. There's nowhere that we've been entering hours anywhere. Okay. Divide by 39.75 should be 15. How about that? Okay. So the first step is to figure out how much per hour the employee is being paid for overtime. Not base pay, overtime. Okay. Take that number divided by 3 equals $5. That is the half portion of time and a half. 10 times 1.5 is 15. The other way to do it is take the overtime hourly rate minus the base pay. That is also your qualified overtime number. 15 minus 10 is, guess what? 5. Okay, so that's our qualified overtime, shall we call it, rate. Okay, so we're going to take 5 times the number of overtime hours times 39.75. $198.75. That's what should have been in the qualified overtime box, but it wasn't. Okay, so we're going to keep that number in mind, 198.75. Okay, so to prove my point, I'm sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but this is a very common misunderstood concept. But once you break down the math, it's very simple. Okay, I have no idea how much Fred gets paid because I don't remember. Because I'm old and I don't remember things. 562.50 divided by 18.75. He gets $30 an hour for overtime. Okay. So what that tells me is his base pay is 20 bucks. Just doing the math in my head. 20 times 1.5 is 30. Okay. So we take that $30 an hour divided by 3 equals 10. That's our qualified overtime number. Okay, $10 times 18.75 hours. And I didn't realize, but I accidentally on purpose covered up the qualified overtime tracking. Let's see how good I am. Times 18.75 hours worked equals 187.50. Is that what we have? Yes, that is what we have. Here again, let's do it one more time. Okay. Here, okay, $75 worked 2.5 hours. 75 divided by 2.5, $30 divided by 3, $10 times 2.5, $25. $25. Let's do yet another one. 60 divided by 2, $30 we know. Divided by 3, $10 times 2 equals $20. Let's do this one. This one has some strange numbers. 4250, quit cheating. Okay. 127.50 divided by 4.25 equals 30. Hey, what do you know? Divided by 3, 10 times 4.25, 4250. What do you know? It's right. We're not going to bother. 10 times 10 is 100. We know that. Now, you may ask, what if they've had a raise between the first check and this check? Don't matter. Still take this number, and I've already tried it. I'm not going to demo it. Do the same math for the total for the year. Okay. Do the same math. The gross pay for the overtime divided by the number of hours to get your hourly rate divided by 3 times the number of hours worked again. You'll get what the qualified overtime tracking number should be. It does not, I repeat, does not matter if they've had raises, pay cuts. I don't care. It will work out. I tested it. I 100% guarantee you that it works. Okay. All right. Now that we've gone down that rabbit hole about 25 times, let's go back to our task at hand. All right. Like I said, our test subject has no QOT. However, he should have gotten it. One more time, we're going to do the math yet again. One more time. 596.25 divided by the number of hours worked, 39.75 equals 15 divided by 3 equals 5. That's the half portion of time and a half times the number of hours worked, 39.75 equals 198.75. That's the number we're going to enter when we're entering his history. Okay. Now, let's head on over to the history before our situation times out here. I hope you all understand it. If not, feel free to leave a comment in here and on this video. I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions you may have. Or if you would like me to do I think I did a special video on it. I might do another one later on, covering it a little bit more in detail, especially with the double time and so forth. But yeah, let me know if there's a video you want me to do, especially with payroll. I love payroll. All right. Anyway, quit babbling. All righty. Year-to-date total for regular pay, 3,200. Weekend rate, that's a special rate. And I'm going to show you something more on that as well, so stay tuned. Special rate, he got paid 180. Overtime pay, 596.25. This is where you're going to enter the QOT tracking. Okay. Now, I want to show you something. I'm going to enter $2 million here. Okay. And some of you are probably saying, whoa, wait a minute. That's really going to jack up the taxes. Wait and see. So federal withholding, 149.94. Social, 246.53. Medicare, 57.66. And last but not least, 35.22.12. Now, some of you are probably betting, oh, this is going to throw up all kinds of red flags. Watch this. Didn't do a darn thing. Why? Because the qualified overtime tracking is merely that, a tracking number. It does not and will not add anything to federal, Social Security, Medicare, state, SUI, anything like that. This is merely a tracking number. That's all it's there for. At the end of the year, whatever number is in this box will get reported on the W-2 on box 12TT. Last year, it was either put in box 15 or 14 or whatever, because none of the payroll providers, I don't think, had a provision for it. Maybe some of the other ones. QuickBooks did not. But this year for 2026, it will be in box 12TT, which we can see inside of the employee's profile. And actually, let me show you that now. We're going down that rabbit hole yet again. Let's go to employees because we're done with history anyway. Well, not all of it. So let's go into test subject. Well, we could have went into any of them. Qualified OT tracking. We go in there, show tax settings, click it 3 times. I don't know why. There's our box. 12TT. That, oops, sorry. That will be the box that it's in. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right, let's go back. So let's fix this number. We screwed up my payroll. 198.75. Like I said, it don't care. It don't care what this number is. It's just merely a tracking number. Okay. So we have 100% put accurate numbers in here. We're good to go to the next step. Okay. Pay dates. Okay. Let's pull a report and figure out what pay dates we got. Here again, I love the payroll details report. It shows you everything. Okay. So what we got to make note of is the pay dates, not the pay periods, the pay dates. So we have 220. Actually, well, all my employees were paid every week. So this is a little bit easier than taking everybody's paycheck and scrolling them for miles and miles. But if you know an employee was paid every single week, you can just use this. 220, 26, 123, and 19, I believe, right? Yep. 19. Okay. Jot those down, and we'll move on. So now, it's going to want to know the totals for each pay date. Here again, this is a total for all employees. It's not per employee, it's for all of the employees. So what you want to make sure of is you are selecting the proper pay date. Okay. Notice it only bring up his because we have we want to make sure. This is the other thing, a common mistake that people make. Okay. They only choose active employees. What if you paid somebody and fired them they're no longer active in your payroll. If you don't select all employees, you're not going to see their paychecks. You're going to create your own problems on down the line. Okay. So make sure you select all employees that were paid this year. Okay. So now we have the proper date. Here are our totals. Now this is where I was talking about regular pay and salary getting combined. Okay. It's looking for just regular pay here. There's nothing here for salary. I don't like it, but it's the way that it works. Okay. So what we got to do is take our 9615.38 plus 4400, 14015.38. That's going to be the same for all 4 pay periods, just so happens, because I didn't reduce anybody's wages or anything goofy. So let's start entering that. 14015.38. What a coincidence, eh? Now you got to be very careful here. You enter these in the right areas. This is where a lot of people make mistakes. Okay. You might put qualified OT up under S Corp because you're in a rush. You think you got it down pat. You're blazing right through it. Yeah. Go slow. Be methodical. Weekend rate 96. Overtime pay 450. PTO, we didn't pay any. S Corp 400. Now, as I said before about the qualified OT, it's merely a tracking number. Okay. You don't necessarily need to break it up into the 4 different pay periods. Sure, you can do that for bookkeeping purposes, but ultimately, in the end, the totals are going to come out correct. Okay. So, on this particular payroll run, we had exactly $100 of qualified OT tracking. Okay. I want to add that $198.75 in there so that it gets included. So we're actually going to purposely enter what is incorrect based on this report. Okay, we're going to enter 298.75. Okay, so that I don't forget to enter. All right, then we move on to Blue Cross Blue Shield. Here again, be sure you're looking at the proper deduction. Blue Cross Blue Shield is 275. Now, I'm going to purposely mix up the numbers here. I'm going to put the employer's contribution in the employee side and put the employee in the employer. So 384.62, just to show you what happens. And what was the company? I don't remember. Company 7692. Okay. 7692. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm. So I flip flopped. Wait. Oh, that's a 401k plan. Wait a minute. What just happened? Okay. No, 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 no. I don't want. Okay. I want 7692 up here. I'm sorry. Then I want the employee part down here under the employer part. Employee part was, this is help, 401k. 401k, where'd it go? Where'd it go? 384.62. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to purposely screw up, and I'm going to mess up screwing up. All right, child support, back to this. 250. That's Mr. Flintstone. Federal 1220.67. Social 885.75. Medicare 207.15. And Okie 67. Notice there's no net pay. I kind of wish they would, but it's all right. We don't have to worry about net pays. Okay. So we purposely entered everything wrong. Well, not everything, but a couple numbers wrong. It's crazy how it highlights these that I chose. Huh. Okay. Anyway, I purposely entered these two wrong. We know that. It doesn't know it because when I hit save, it could care less. All right. So the next pay date was January 23rd. So let's select the 23rd to the 23rd. Apply. Here again, you get the qualified OT. We've already taken care of that missing qualified OT from our previous report, so no longer a need to worry about that. All right, so let's add a pay date. January 23rd. All right, regular pay. Here again, that's our 14,015 combined regular pay and salary. The weekend rate, $72. Overtime, 528.75. No PTO. S Corp was 400. QOT tracking, 136.25. Blue Cross Blue Shield, 275. 401k plan employee, 384.62. Child support, 250. This is a 76.92. Notice how it saved what I put earlier. 1228.32. Social Security, 889.16. Medicare, 207.95. And Okie, $67. Once again, we save. Now we move on to February 6th. Really? You wouldn't let me select it up there. Whatever. February 6th. Same ritual once again. Add. Almost there, folks. Trust me. Regular pay. Weekend rate. You have a weekend rate? Did I miss that? Okay. Yeah, we don't have a weekend rate on this particular payroll run. Overtime pay, 408.75. No pay time off. S Corp is that. Qualified OT. I said, folks, this is going to be a huge call driver over here at Intuit. When people don't do things right, they don't understand how it's calculated. But I'm here to tell you, it's very simple. Blue Cross Blue Shield as usual. Employee, child support. It's nice when employees have the same amount every week. Federal, 1205.07. Social, 877.24. Med, 205.17. If I mix up numbers there. 67 for Okie. Save. One more to go. We are doing February 20th. Okay. Now we have a weekend right here. All right. Like I said, attention to detail, folks. You know, just because it's not there on the previous week doesn't mean it's not going to be there on the following. So pay close attention. You don't want to be skipping stuff. Actually, we're going to purposely skip the weekend rate here. Oops, I am not done. I accidentally hit that. So you can see, hey, we're missing stuff here, you know. And you notice it happens to be the same. There's our $12 weekend rate. So the system has double checked itself and said, whoa, you were off by these amounts. And these amounts happen to be the same amounts that are here. Isn't that a miracle? Okay. So when QuickBooks says the numbers are off, the numbers are off. Okay. It's based on the data that you enter. And the old law of programming, garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage into the program, you're going to get garbage out. So double check your numbers before calling in and screaming saying QuickBooks is crazy, even though I'm going to show you something crazy later on here. Anyway, so weekend rate here will be $12. However, we're going to skip it on purpose. Overtime pay, $521.25. No pay time off. S Corp QOT, $132.50. There it is. Blue Cross Blue Shield, $275 for 1K. Child support, employer. Granted, folks, I mean, if you got the same stuff week after week, God bless you. You know, but you never want to fly through it like I am. I'm trying to keep the video kind of short, but get the point across. 884, 98, 206, 98. I pray to God that I can do this and talk at the same time. All right, so we got all that entered. Now we're going to save. Now, how much we're willing to bet we're going to have a discrepancy in the Blue Cross Blue Shield and our weekend rate. Let's take a look. There we are. Or I'm sorry, not Blue Cross, the 401k plan. So yeah. So anytime you see something like this, okay, that's off by exactly that number. You can say, okay, maybe I flipped the numbers. Okay. So yeah. Here we already know where that problem is. And the other thing is, you know, if it's off by a certain amount on a certain item, okay, which employees had 401k plan on them? Okay, ask yourself that. Which employee had the weekend rate applied? Only one employee. Okay, so if you're 100% certain that you entered the, the total by employee correct, then you go straight to total by pay date. Now that can be a pain in the butt. Okay, yes, you can enter, you can review this. Okay, it's not going to tell you something, anything. So where we messed that up, I think it was on the second one. We reversed the numbers. No, it wasn't. Okay. Was it on the first one? Yeah. Okay. This number should have went up here. So let's put it in here. Okay. That problem is solved. If you want to take it one step at a time and say, okay, let's double check our numbers. Okay, we fixed that. The only person with a weekend rate, I believe, was our test subject. But we know it was, and that can be a little bit more tricky. Okay, test subject. Okay, you can go double check his totals for the year. Okay, well, I entered it okay on the employee side, so it's got to be in the history side. It becomes a little bit tricky, I know, but ultimately, the system is protecting you from entering the wrong numbers. Okay, so here we forgot our $12. And you'll also notice, folks, that I had entered the QOT on a test subject as one lump sum, 198.75. It didn't care about when I entered it over here on each payday. As long as that total is fine and dandy, it doesn't really care. The other thing to keep in mind with qualified overtime is it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't increase taxes. So, it's just a tracking number. As long as it's in there, it's in there. Okay. I mean, if you want to be anal about it and pull it up for each and every payroll run, so be it. I'm not going to yell at you. All right. So let's see if we've done everything right. If you see a pause after you hit done, that means you've done everything right. We have a pause. We have the spinning circle of death. And eventually it'll say, hey, you can run payroll. Okay. So now we're going to pay my team. And I'm sure we're going to get a pop-up survey. Or not. Okay. Fine with me. Okay. So the other thing I want to go over, one last thing before I end this video. I know we're running a little bit long, almost an hour. Is once again a qualified overtime. It's a big thing. It's going to be a big thing. Okay. The biggest thing is going to be this. Okay. Now, actually, I want to show you two things. Let's say I forgot to enter that 198.75 in the payroll history. Okay. That does not necessitate, excuse me, a payroll correction at Intuit. You can correct it yourself very simply. Okay. Remember, oops, don't do that, Bob. All right. So we are simply going to wipe out the 80 hours, and I want to correct it on this particular paycheck. Okay. This pay period, this paycheck, pay date, pay period, pay date doesn't really matter when you're correcting just the qualified OT tracking. You notice there is nothing in any of the three boxes. Let's say we shorted them $20,000. It's not possible, but whatever. Okay, so 20,000. Oh, I know what else we gotta go over, the PTO stuff. Okay. That's all we're entering, just that number. Preview payroll. Okay. Notice. No automated withdrawal. I owe nothing for taxes, nothing for wages, nothing at all. It's under other pay. And for proof of no taxes, here you are. 0, 0, 0 the whole way down. But we are adding $20,000. Okay. Hit save, submit. It doesn't yell at you or anything. Now, if you were to do that, say, on Fred Flintstone, and he has that $100 or $200 a week um, taken out for a deduction, whether it be Blue Cross, whatever, it's not going to let you create a negative paycheck. You have to have gross pay. But you know what? Let's try that. I've been wanting to try that. Not where I wanted to go, but that's all right. So let's run a second paycheck. Or a different paycheck for Mr. Flintstone. I don't think it's going to let us take a garnishment off of a check. As you can see, this employee was paid $0, so it remembers that. So let's remove that. And let's say he had $150 qualified OT. Let's see what happens. Remember, he has the garnishment. Okay. it automatically removed it. That is quite interesting. Okay. That is not what I expected. Okay. Let's go back. So Easter Bunny, let's say they got overtime, their salary, but they have Blue Cross Blue Shield. And we can skip salary this time. Apply. We're going to put $1,000. Okay. Let's see what it says to that one. Huh. Okay. So here again, you can do your own correction. Okay. Um, if it lets you to the preview page, you can certainly submit payroll. I'm not going to submit it because I'm too lazy to delete the checks. Anyway, let's get back to where I started. Um, okay, let's go to the next pay period. That way we're in a clean slate. All right. What is up with that? Not checking everybody. Okay, whatever. All right, so we're going to play with our test subject again. That didn't come out good. Okay, so as you know, or can see, his base pay is $10 an hour. However, I pay him $12 an hour for working weekends, because that's the kind of employer I am. All right, so generally, overtime is based on the base rate. However, due to, shall we say, the Intuit programming, if you have a higher pay rate, okay, in the employee profile, this is per employee, and you enter hours under that pay rate, keep an eye on this number here under overtime. I'm just going to enter 1 hour. Hit tab on your keyboard. Watch that number change. It goes to $18 an hour. This is the way the QuickBooks works. Please don't call and complain and say there's something wrong with the system. It is a system, shall we say, limitation. Okay? They're not. The only thing I can suggest is put in feedback. I think they need to make a provision where you can select what to put in here all the time rather than have to go in and edit the paycheck. So let's say Mr. Test Subject worked 10 hours of overtime at $15 an hour. Now, putting a number in there, as you notice, does not change that number. However, now it's calculating wrong over here. It is calculating off of this $12 an hour. Okay. So a lot of people are going to miss that fact, be over-reporting the qualified overtime, and be calling in later on screaming and hollering. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay. The other people are going to be calling in saying, well, I've been paying this employee way too much overtime. How do I fix it? Yeah, I understand your frustration, and all I can suggest, put in feedback. Anyway, so now you've noticed, okay, I got to change this number. I got to change this number. You can make this $5 million if you want. It'll let you. It's not going to change the taxes. It'll let you put in whatever you want or take it out. Doesn't matter. However, I like to edit the check in the preview panel. Some people like to edit it over here. All right. I like to go preview payroll, click that magnifying glass, and then edit it. Basically the same screen. It's just the way I like to do things. You be you. Okay. So he is not supposed to get paid $18 an hour. We can pay him $15 an hour. Yeah, don't I wish $1,500 an hour. And you notice our net pay changed because that changed. Okay. Qualified overtime tracking. Here again, let's use our magical formula. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 5 times 10 is $50. Like I said, our net did not change, nor did this. Watch. Our net, or I'm sorry, our net didn't change and neither did the taxes. So when the government says no tax on overtime, it's simply a rebate that they get when they file their taxes. So the government's probably counting on you not to report that, even though it is reported. Whatever. It's nice that they're doing that. Hopefully, it keeps me from having to pay so much taxes this year. I don't know. But anyway, so once you have that, remember to change your, if you have multiple pay rates and you're putting hours in both, make sure your overtime rate is correct. We're not going to sit there and tell you what it should be. You're the employer. You should know. Okay. Um, we can't help you with the formula. I've been trying to get my paper circulated with everybody on how to figure this out. The article that we have is not helpful. It's helpful, but it doesn't explain everything. All right, so we're going to save it. Stop babbling. Like I said, it's always going to appear under other pay. Everything's correct there. Our wages are still correct. Submit. It doesn't yell at us. Now our qualified overtime's up to date, so on and so forth. Let's take a look at our payroll reports as a final farewell here. Should be up here at the top. Once again, I love my payroll details report. That is my go-to report. Okay. Pull up this entire year. Okay. So here you can see historical checks. You can't see them anymore. I'm not sure why, but it's just the way it is. Okay. So this is your entire history that you put in. You can still customize it. Let's go under test subject. Run report. Okay, you notice there's our 198.75 from the historical. Okay. Did I leave that like that? I must have. Okay. Um, yeah, I did. March 20th, I had $20,000 in there. Okay. Whatever. Whatever. It don't matter. I don't care. Um, so yeah, that was what I call the adjustment check. Zero net, zero gross. We were just adjusting the qualified overtime. Um, so yeah, our year to date is right on the money, supposedly. Um, yeah, so you can keep customizing it. Check on each employee just to kind of make sure, this historical, of course, is going to match the total for the year because we haven't paid this person. But once you start running payroll, this will populate. So I really hope this helps you. Like I said, as always, like, tag, share, and follow. And if you have a video you would like me to show you on how to do something in payroll, I'm pretty good at it. I've been supporting agents, training agents for quite some time, a couple years. I've become quite good at it. I have probably about 15 or 20 payroll accounts that I constantly play around in, tinkering with stuff like this. So if there's something you want to see, just drop me a comment down below and I'll try to do that for you. Hope you liked this video. I'm sorry it went an hour and 10 minutes, but and I think it's a good video. So, of course, I think that about everything. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.